Yes, we are back. I'm Justin Tipppet and I'm joined again by world champion Don Elgin. Welcome, Don.
Mate, I love our intro music. It is arguably my favourite little piece of the... Oh, actually, that's not a good sign, is it? If that's the favourite piece is the music. No, clearly it's bloody good, though. It gets me up and about. I love it and it's great to be back.
Mate, that's what we love, getting up and about and getting everyone else up and about. So everyone who's been listening, we've had people write in and say they're on the car on the way home or going for a walk in the morning, sitting in the bath, which is a bit weird. But hey, anyway you're listening, we appreciate you tuning in.
Almost. I actually right now have to do a couple of apologies. I don't apologise for stuff all, but I have to apologise little Max. Mick, his awesome dad who I've done Kokoda with, he was driving him down to his pa's birthday and he was listening to the podcast. Now, I'm pretty sure he was listening to episode 1. So Max has learnt a new word. Starts with F and ends in K and it's not fire truck.
I'm only going to keep my finger on that for this
Boom,
episode,
look at you
Donnie.
go.
You are under intense scrutiny for this episode.
Yes, I know.
Now, of course, normally we've been going out on a Wednesday, roughly, when we never really had a set plan, which pretty much sums up our whole life, Don.
So it works out.
But of course, we did actually end up recording an episode after the game last week, the Mighty Hawks.
What a great game
versus
it was.
the Roos. That was
Awesome
a big game, wasn't it? And
Huge game.
We had a little bet on that game. It's fair to say.
It's a big bet, mate, because I didn't have to eat chili, so it was a bloody great bet. And I'm really glad that, mate, the outcome was whoever lost by however many goals they had to eat the chilies. The podcast that we did record has the footage. We recorded that footage. The lovely, beautiful first wife, Buff, recorded that. So got to see you eating some chili. And that was great. So well done, mate.
Jeez, I tell you what, I can still taste that in my mouth. It was bloody hot, I tell you. But
it was good.
A bet's a bet.
A bet. Loved it.
You know, so if you do want to see the footage, it is on our Facebook group. Just look up Giddy Up Podcast and you will see it. Now, that's not really the controversial moment, though, Don, because we did a whole episode, went for an hour and 13 minutes of our great
bloody
time.
long, yeah.
And yet it never saw the light of day, Don.
Well, let me put it right here, right now, JT. There's been a lot of discussion on the podcast chats of personal messages and stuff, and people saying, hey, what are we going to do? Can't go for a walk. We normally tune into you blokes on a Thursday morning.
Sorry, Nikki. Yep.
Sorry, Nikki, for that one. But the truth is we pulled the podcast, and the reason we pulled it is, well, it's entirely me. I stuffed up. And the reason, I'm going to be really open and honest here, JT. I stuffed up because we ventured into an area and I didn't have my normal decency, be a decent human program going on in my head. I actually went into bat and had a crack. I had a crack at one of our listeners on a review, and we don't need to go over there because what we will decide is that all reviews are good reviews because they help us. But what I did is I got very opinionated, and when I'm sort of pushed into a corner, mate, I'll have a bit of a crack, and I had a crack, and on review of you and I listening to the podcast, that piece in particular, even though there was some true gold in that podcast, that one piece alone really contravened what we set out to do, which was to entertain, to have a discussion, to open up opinions for people to have discussions. And honestly, I wasn't proud of myself. I had 3 hours sleep that night. As an entertainer, as a motivational speaker, mate, I feed off the crowd. When I'm in a gig and things are going great, I'm up and about and the energy's there. And honestly, when I reviewed, and I'm my harshest critic, and I reviewed what I said, I was actually pissed off with myself. I was pissed off with the fact that I had those thoughts because they were attacking, and it's not what I want to do. I don't have any intention to go through life putting somebody else down to make me feel good. And that's exactly what I did, and we didn't feel good. And we decided that it's not good enough for you, the listener out there that have tuned in to here to listen to a couple of blokes have a conversation about some topical things, and more importantly, scratch the surface so that you can have a conversation about those things and continue the conversation. My view isn't so important, and I'm not so precious that I can't go, hang on, I was out of line. So I was absolutely out of line. And JT, before you jump in here, I want to say thank you to you. Thank you to you for having the courage and being good enough, mate, to say, hey, Don, I reckon we've crossed the line there and I need to step in and have the conversation about whether we should rip it. And we both agreed we should. And if it wasn't for you, mate, if our egos got in the road, we would have just pushed publish. And honestly, we'd be dealing with a world of shit today. And we're not. Not yet. We'll probably create that over the next hour. But the truth is, I'm ridiculously grateful. I had you and I had my beautiful first wife who is still my first wife. I looked at her during that show and I seen the look on her face, on Buff's face, and I knew I'd crossed the line, but it didn't stop me. I kept going, mate, and I laid right in.
You did.
And, mate, I'm glad we didn't put the show on earth. It didn't see the light of day. And thank you to the listeners for hanging in there to hear today's and to see what else we come up with.
Oh, awesome. Well said, Donnie. And we're looking forward to bringing you an episode today. And you're right. I mean, we set about making this podcast to make people feel good and talk about some things and have a bit of a laugh. And we didn't want it to be too serious. But it is a fine line because we do want to keep it real and we do want to share some of our personal views and thoughts, but we understand it is a really fine line. And when you do that, you're going to polarize. And we don't want to be out there polarizing the world. We want to stimulate some conversation.
Yeah, and honestly, what shouldn't happen is our opinion shouldn't stop the conversation. And that's what I felt that we did is we said, your view is not important in this conversation. That's bullshit. All views are important. And that's what we should have the conversation about is, well, what are the different views? Let's not shy away from the conversation, but let's have it.
Yep, absolutely. And, thank you for saying thanks for being your mate and calling it out. We've actually got a great clip from Ricky Nixon later in the show where he talks about, understanding, the importance of your mates. And, if there's a polarising figure in Melbourne, it's definitely Ricky Nixon. So, we look forward to bringing you a clip.
Stay tuned.
We look forward to bringing that a bit later on. Now, of course, one of the things we always like to talk about is things that are happening during the week. In fact, we love it so much, we even created a little jingle for it.
Oh.
What got your attention this week?
And the key there is we created that. We didn't pay for that. Clearly, we didn't pay for that. But it's impressive. Like, that shit has taken off. I wouldn't be surprised if that's had a few downloads from our podcast and other people are using that.
I very much doubt it. Very much doubt it. And so what got our attention this week? Well, look, to be honest, a lot because we did record it last Sunday and now we had stuff ready for that show.
2 big weeks.
And now there's a bit of other stuff that's happened because we're recording this, for everyone that doesn't know, we're recording this on Saturday, which the date, of course, is the 4th that we're recording this. So it's been a big week again.
Massive
There's
week.
a lot happening. Now, one of the things that we want to kick off with, pay rises, Donnie.
Oh, pay rise. Honourable mention to little chap, mate. My baby sister, Donna from same fallopian tube, like this, my little sister Chubb. She's busted her gut to get educated, which was a big job for her because she's not the smartest tool. Nah, she's all right. She's literally come to me today or last week and said, Donnie, this is bullshit. And you reckon I swear, mate, she opens up that can very well and said, the pollies are getting 2.5% pay rise and they've turned around and said that us early educators only getting 1.75% because of COVID. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but pollies, fair income, when are you immune from COVID? If somebody's getting 2.5 and you're going to roll out somebody's not getting it because of COVID, aren't we all in this together? So I call bullshit on the pollies there. I figure that our early learners, mate, and we think, like, seriously, they're already getting 20K less than their counterparts in the primary schools and secondary schools, 20K less. I'm pretty sure that the guys in secondary school aren't wiping bums either. So if you think about that, you might go, oh yeah, but it's a different job. Trust me, every job's got its perks and some have some very ordinary perks and part of the job. So, but they're still trained up. Bloody lot rich. Anyway, so hats off to Chubb. Good luck, mate, in your fight and getting a bit more coin.
And for all the parents that listen to the show, and I know there's a number of parents there who just experienced homeschooling. Yeah. If there's ever a time to appreciate our early leading teachers and our secondary teachers, it's now, right?
Yes, let's pay the teachers rightly their fair whack, or better still, let's just hold on the pollies and give them 1.75 as well. I'm not afraid of, as I said, everyone being in this together, but we should be in it together, not bloody saying, nah, they're worth less, because as a matter of fact, they're worth more.
Now, the other thing that's, of course, in the news a lot lately is COVID. And there's a few things that we...
COVID, I just got to...
I'm
bloody getting this mask on, JT, because COVID, this shit's real, JT. And
hello.
How's that? I've got my mask on now. I hope you can hear me okay.
Probably not great for a podcast, I would have thought, Donnie. Great for the video if anyone's watching at home.
I'm going to piss the... Mask is going off, JT. Because I've seen in the States, they've whacked out a rule that in some public places, it's actually mandatory to wear a mask or face covering. And, honestly, I think some people, the world's going to be a better place with a few face coverings going on if they do full face. But anyway, we don't want to bloody isolate some people, but some people are butt ugly, like dead set drop pies and a tucker bag, the brown paper. Anyway,
can't believe you're going there already.
Mate, what's important is that we're all in this together and we look out for each other. And I don't know, but I think a face mask in public environment, well, what do we got to lose? It's going to be a little bit harder to breathe, but if you're not sucking in a bit of the old COVID, then we're probably going to help some people.
Oh, there was an article on news.com where a source of most of my information, rightly or wrongly.
Spend a bit of time on there and TikTok and other places.
Well, yeah, this is true. God, I love TikTok. Yeah. Now, there was a lady in the UK. She was a paramedic, and she got the call that all paramedics would dread.
Yeah.
She got called to an emergency call out for a 94-year-old patient. And it turned out that patient was her father.
Can she still go to that? What's the story?
She did.
Well, she's a paramedic. She's on. Yep. Okay.
They were the closest unit, and off she goes. So,
right.
So anyway, during the ride to the hospital, her dad wanted her daughter to be by her side instead of driving the ambo, and so they stayed in the back together. Now, when they got to the hospital, obviously COVID in the UK is a lot worse than we've got it here right now, and she thought, well, there's no way that her dad has COVID. He's been at home and, self-isolating, all that
done all the right
stuff.
things.
Correct.
Yep.
And when she had visited, being emergency services, she knew that, she was at higher risk. Now, always wore masks and everything. So they did absolutely everything they could to make sure he was okay. So there was no way. So anyway, that all happened. But she later found out that he actually did test positive to COVID.
Shit.
And so he had to go straight to the COVID bay. And what's really sad is that was the last time she got to see her dad. Unfortunately, he passed away a few days later through COVID. And of course, you can't even understand how difficult that would have been. And this is a guy who was a 94-year-old war hero, who died alone, no family, no nothing with him, in a ward or a hospital. It was pretty horrible. But what was interesting, and just your thought on the face mask triggered it, was what she couldn't understand was that they'd done everything right. And how did he get COVID? Because they were self-isolating and that they'd always taken the right care. But it turns out there was carers that were coming to the house that were looking up. They're elderly and they had support around, cleaning and all that sort of stuff. And it turns out that some of those weren't wearing masks. And so clearly that's where he's
some positive person brought it into the home.
Yeah, correct.
So self-isolating clearly wasn't enough on its own. And isn't that the most interesting thing about COVID is that if ever there's been a time in our lifetime to understand that this is not about us, it's the selfless act to help somebody else simply by wearing a mask. And, like Nutto, my daughter, does that exact role, goes into other people's homes. And interesting that, I would have thought that the masks and all the safety equipment that her employer would make sure that it's mandatory.
I would have thought so, right?
It's going to be a game changer, seriously. And I think when people say, the young people are recovering from this, like, yep, they might be, but the old people are dying from it. So
that's right. In the UK, Don, 43,000 deaths from COVID. And they're predominantly related to those above the age of 50, 104 in Australia. We just are so far removed from how serious this is around the globe. And I think sometimes you trivialise it a little bit going, oh, geez, it's just getting all a bit ridiculous.
Well, the reason we trivialise it, JT, is because it hasn't affected us. And you know what? Why hasn't it affected us? Because we took those tough measures in the first place. And so, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like, what do we need to do? Do we need to see a high death toll before we actually take it serious? Surely we can look outside our own front door to realise that if we continue to do the right thing, we're going to be better off because of that. Not let's wait till we're in the same boat as US or France or Brazil or somewhere else and then be crying that we've stuffed up.
Yep.
Like we've been given a free kick, the fact that Australia is so far away from the rest of the world. We should bloody take it, and we really should kick a goal with this. And my point on that is that I read that 10,000 people have refused tests
In Victoria, and for those that are listening in other states, good luck to you because you guys are all kicking up and partying while Victoria's in lockdown. And there's 10 postcodes, which actually covers a number of suburbs that have been locked down specifically in Victoria. And they've been going door to door to get everyone tested in those neighbourhoods. And as you said, Don, about 10,000 people have said no.
What's your take on someone rocking up and going, I'm here to test you, you're in a hotspot? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when I first heard that news, I was going, really? I mean, what's the big deal? And I was listening to 3AW. Yes, I'm old, so I listen to Talkback Radio sometimes. And the guy rang up and he said, you know what? He goes, I've got no issue around doing the test. He goes, what I had an issue, and this is a guy that had said no to the test. And he said, I thought, this would be interesting. Here's someone's view, right? And he said, what I had offence was someone just knocked up on my door and they said they looked like they were just some uni student just out of nowhere and said, mate, I'm here to do your test. And he goes, how the hell do I know that they know what they're doing and they're going to shove something down my throat? It's not the most pleasant test.
Of course.
Have they had the right training? Have they done everything? He said that was the only reason I was objecting. No issues in principle of being tested. I just had some concerns about the people that were doing the testing. And I think that's a fair criticism.
I think it's a bloody great criticism. I think the reality is if somebody is coming in there, it's a bit like following a coach who's fat and obese and they're telling you to go and run because it's going to make you better, and you sort of look and go, who are you kidding, fatso? Like you've never run in your life. Why should I listen to you? So we lead by example, and sometimes, I've flown to Sydney during this time, and on there they're saying, you're all getting a kit, wear your mask, and the people that are actually on the airlines that are telling you to wear a mask aren't wearing a mask. And you go, well, hang on a minute, why would I? So this is that point exactly. But I think I would like to throw one bit more into that, and I'd say if you drink drive, right, if you're driving under the influence and you refuse a test, then there's some consequences for that refusal. It's your right to refuse it, but there's a consequence for that.
Yeah.
The consequence here
You're
is
assumed guilty, basically.
Correct, but the consequence here is people die. So surely there should be enough weight in the fact that there's a potential death here, same as there is drink driving on the road, that we should say, hang on, there's a fine in place if you don't do it. And this is the difference. When you go and get a test, a drink drive test, there's a police officer who's trained to give you that breath test. And so that he's got a bloody fair point. I reckon the government need to just lift their game a little bit here, spend a little bit of extra time. I know we're doing things on the hop, but if they go and prepare this right, then I reckon our refusals to test will be way lower if someone rocked up there looking like medical, looking official, and got the job done right. So come on. But I think the other thing too is you as a dad, JT, me as a dad, we can lead people, our listeners. We don't need somebody to rock up and say, hey, what can you do to stay safer? We can do that on our own back on them right now by simply listening to the information that's available.
Now, Don, when this thing all started, you remember people started stockpiling, things like toilet paper, for example.
That's right. We had a crack at them.
We did, and we just couldn't. Literally, I remember a week when I couldn't get toilet paper.
I know.
Things got quite great for a while.
I know, JT. I've just got the stains out of my shirt that you bought.
Now, you're not going to believe this, Don.
No, what?
Woolworths and Coles have announced that they are reintroducing product limits across the country as a surge in coronavirus cases in Victoria prompts a new wave of panic buying. Woolworths customers can now only buy 2 packets of toilet paper and paper towels per transaction. Meanwhile, Coles...
Don, it's happening again.
Oh, did we not learn? Is that what is stopping us from learning that, one, the toilet paper, it's sort of, COVID's not affecting our rear end a great deal. So the toilet paper, like that thing's got me for a start. Can one of our listeners just write to us on our bloody any format you want and just let us know why toilet paper? Why? Like there might be a legit reason that we've just bloody missed out on. But if there is, can you let us know? And can all the other people that are too busy to write to us because you're buying more toilet paper, can you just bloody stop? Like, please?
So, of course, it's not just toilet paper. They've put limits on pasta and flour and all the stuff that was back in place again. Right. Do you think sometimes, though, Don, that monkey see, monkey do? So as soon as the media goes, oh, we're going to start clamping down, then everyone goes, oh, well, if they're going to start, shit, I better go and get it, and all of a sudden there's a rush, which there wasn't really a demand in the first place.
So JT, you raise a good point. If the media didn't tell us that there was restrictions, would we bloody know?
No, we would not.
So in which case we wouldn't then go, oh, we better go and get our lot in case there's none left. So I figure, media, pull your head in, mate. Tell us what we really need to know. And you also can take a lead here and just think about what your actions are doing to the population, because we're kidding ourselves if we think we're not influenced by the media. Why on earth would we pay for advertising during the news if we weren't influenced? We know, so the media, you're a bunch of dicks if you're reporting stuff that's creating panic.
So, conspiracy theory.
No, they're just a bunch of dicks for showing, like, for creating a fire out of a spark. They don't need to do that.
So who wins out of that though?
Well, the advertisers, the media, because they're creating the hype, and the advertisers go, well, that's where the hype's at. I want my products to be seen during the attention that's on the news. We all know, JT, that good news doesn't sell. That's why we made our show and said, let's have a bit of good news. And that's probably why our ratings are shit. We need our no, our ratings are. But we seriously, we all know that. We've been ingrained in it's entrenched in us from the time we could read. We read the paper all throughout the paper. It's bad news. Even the news is just starting to play with our emotions a little bit and have a good news segment. Oh, fucking kiss me. Seriously? Yeah. Who are we kidding? We have a good... Anyway, it's nice. One good news segment is better than none, but the world, we need to look on the brighter side a bit more often.
I think we do. So speaking of which, Don...
what do you got?
Nothing nice. Okay. Last week we covered we went deep last week and we started talking about name changes. And if you recall,
oh no,
Redskins, favourite lolly, no longer, gone, going. Chicos, gone.
Have we got a name for them yet?
Not yet, no. I have seen some very funny memes going around, I've got to say. But no, there's been no announcement yet of what the new brand is for Redskins or Chicos.
Right.
But it hasn't stopped there, Don. There's more.
There's not more. Well, surely people have said, righto, that's enough.
No, they haven't. They've come out and said, we've got to go harder.
Righto.
French cosmetics giant. I know you're big in your cosmetics, Don. It's why you've got such a beautiful complexion.
I'm still no male model like you, JT, but I'm working on it.
Not be silly.
Watching how you go. And
LOreal. Make a lot of products.
Big time.
And, they've come out in a big press statement, and they've said that they've decided to remove the words white, whitening, fair, fairness, light, lightning from all its skin evening products.
That's okay?
Is that all right?
Yeah, well, because no shit, Sherlock, if you're going to take those words off, you're going to take those ingredients that are causing that whitening, that effect, you'll take that out as well. So as long as they're taking the ingredients...
No. The product's the same.
Turn it up.
But the name is clearly offensive because it's talking about white, fairness.
Oh, so they're now just going to bullshit consumers to say... You can put this on, but it won't actually... Hang on a minute, I smell a rat. So people are going to put this product on and nothing happens. Or it makes them white, but they're not saying...
Whatever happened last week will still happen next week from the product. They're just removing those words from the description.
Now that's where I've got some issues with that.
Do you?
Look, well, I only have
Who would have thought?
I don't mind them change it. I get it. Change the name, change the product. Like if there's offence, there's offence. But you can't just change a name and not change a product, because now you're just straight up bullshitting. If it was whitening yesterday and it's not whitening today, that's not because you changed the name, but because you've changed the ingredient, JT. I've got to put my foot down, my good foot, and say, L'Oreal, that's bullshit. Change your product.
Oh, mate, well, I got some more bad news for you, Don.
Not more.
Well,
come on.
Rumour has it, bananas.
What's wrong with bananas?
Mate, they're gone.
Huh?
No, we're just removing him. We need a name change. It could reflect a state of mind. Because, when you say, mate, that bloke is bananas.
Oh, no.
And so we're not just stopping at bananas, though, mate. We're going to take away nuts because, you're a bit nuts. Mate, that bloke's a fruitcake. So, no, gone. Fruitcake's gone. No, gone, mate. And crackers, clearly, gone.
Oh, no more crackers?
No more crackers either, mate.
Insinuates that you...
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, JT, we're not here to say that people can't be offended by it. I'll be outraged if people aren't outraged. But let's be outraged for the right thing. So
I think they're valid reasons, mate. Granny Smith apples, gone.
Case that offends the olds?
Yeah, ageism.
Oh, ageism.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And, this one's big. Mars bars. Now, you could
Who's
think,
that?
what the hell is possibly offensive with Mars bars, Don?
Oh, stuff do I know. People don't like caramel.
No, there's a risk that the other planets might be upset.
Yes, because now we give a shit anything past the ozone layer.
Can you tell we're slightly morphing into the dad's joke sequence?
This is have we already started dad jokes?
Not yet.
Clearly,
this is the irony.
We usually have a stinger for this, right? Can't be more.
No, mate, I've got a whole page, and I do want to thank Carol, an old acquaintance from my Australia Post
Thanks,
days,
Carol.
who flagged this on
rock.
Facebook, mate. It
Good
was
on you.
awesome.
Yep.
It's
like
some of those laughed, and then some of them you go, geez, you know what?
It's actually a fair point.
I think there's some seriousness in that. And coconut's a classic example. I mean,
Who's that
coconut is very offensive for a lot of people because it means that you're brown on the outside, white on the inside. And it quite legitimately is quite a criticism if you're calling someone a coconut.
Yeah, no, but I don't have an issue with that, JT. I don't have an issue with, because if you're calling something based on something, then you've picked a name that has the potential to offend. And if see, this is the other thing. I've got a black brother, right? And he's like not from my mum and my dad, but he's marrying. His name's Jimmy, and he's marrying my sister, and he's Indian. I refer to him as my black brother, and that's. For some people, that's going to be seen as racist, I suppose, or potential offensive because I'm identifying. For me, I'm going, mate, I couldn't love this guy anymore if I tried. So I think I've always come back to if you come from a good place, it doesn't really bloody matter what words we're using. But the issue is, if you come from a bad place, then those words are really powerful. And I've reflected on that a lot over the last week. And I
But is that why it is important to stop, though? To use that example, if you called him your black brother and he knows that you don't have a racist bone in your body and he's all good with it.
Of course.
But if I met him for the first time and I said it, would he take offence to that, you think?
Well, my thing is when you meet somebody, you're introduced to them. So most people that know my wife are introduced to her as Boof. And everyone calls her Boof. And some people that are on the outside go, geez, I don't know if I can call her Boof. I'm going, well, don't. Here's her other name. Call her that. So it's call people whatever you bloody want. But if you come from the right place, I genuinely believe that there's no harm in that. And more importantly, if there is harm, if someone's offended by it, put your hand up and go, mate, can you not call me? Like I used to call someone big fella all the time. He stopped me, pulled me up and goes, mate, can you not call me big fella? I'm trying to lose some weight and I really find it difficult. And I keep hearing, I go, shit, mate, I'm sorry. I actually apologise. I said, I'm sorry. That's not where I meant to come from. And I would hate for you to feel that way. So, again, that's the power in having a conversation.
Yeah, but
we need to have it.
Conversation involves someone saying something. So in that instance, your mate was being offended.
Yep.
And he's probably taken a lot of courage, to be honest, to actually come up and say that to you. Because, again, it's not coming from a bad place.
No.
I mean, you call me big fella for other reasons that we'll cover in other
Male
episodes.
models. I doubt that we'll be covering
and
that.
I'm okay with that. I find I get a bit chuffed about that.
Because I call you Pee-wee for years. But anyway, no, go on.
But yeah, so it does take a bit of courage sometimes to talk that up. But, of course, not everyone's got that courage.
Correct.
Now, if he hadn't said that, you would continue to call him big fella.
Correct.
He would continue to be offended by that.
Yes.
So if you didn't call him big fella in the first place, there never would have been offence.
Yeah, but they're all...
So in the same context with the black brother, the reference you just made, what if he actually is offended and just hasn't got the courage to speak, oh, geez, that's the old man of the girl I'm going to marry.
Of course.
I don't have the balls to say anything, but geez, I really wish he wouldn't call me that.
Yep.
How would you know?
Well, that's right. Honestly, I reckon it's down to where have I come from. If I've come from a bad place, then, I'm an ass. Simple as that. But if I've come from a good place and I didn't know, then I reckon that's the thing. That's the bit about taking responsibility for our own actions. If we've come from a good place or if we haven't, then we can change our own behaviour. We don't need somebody to burn down a bloody building before we... Like, we pulled an episode based on the fact that no one told us to pull that, JT. We looked at it and said, I reckon we've crossed the line a bit. And we just ask ourselves the same question. So I think we take responsibility for our own actions, whatever they look like. And we don't have to change. This is the other thing. Just because we're taking responsibility for it doesn't mean we have to change it.
Yep.
So, mate, it's fair game.
No, I love it. And on that note, one of the other things that caught my attention this week, it's got big news down here in Melbourne in particular, which is an AFL Stated, we don't want to make this all
Well, it
about
used to
football,
be.
but well, that's right. We've,
Bloody no AFL played here. Well done, Queensland. You got
gone.
us. Yep.
Thanks for helping
Adelaide,
out.
the joke's on us.
Sydney, everyone helping out. Good work.
Good on you, Western Australia.
Sam Newman. Mate, talk about a divisive character. Sam has been dividing people as long as, you and I have been doing this podcast, and plus about another 30 years on top of that.
Yep.
So he came out a couple of weeks ago, Black Lives Matter, obviously huge global news. He came out and said some pretty harsh words. And
Have you got it?
I do have a clip on that, so let me just cue that up, mate.
Now, just and a heads up to why you're finding that, JT, is I haven't got anything. I'm not here to Sam bash. I've met Sam once. He was a gentleman to me. I got no issues with the bloke.
100%.
He speaks his opinion. I actually don't always agree with his opinion, but I couldn't give a shit. I'd rather someone speak there than not.
Yep. So here's his comments on George Floyd.
George Floyd, who is a piece of shit, incidentally, was killed.
Jeez, you're off the long run today, aren't you?
George, you know who George Floyd is?
Yeah.
He has been in jail 5 times. He held up a pregnant black woman with a knife. He's a drug addict. He's a crackhead, and he's a porn star.
And he's dead.
And he's dead because of the police brutality, and it should never have happened. But I'm just telling you who George Floyd is, and they've made a monument to him, and he's a piece of shit.
Well,
but
it was symbolic, wasn't it? So you missed the point here.
No, I haven't missed the point.
He was killed. He was murdered by a policeman.
He was.
Because of the way they treat black people.
And
I tell you what, there's a lot in that, isn't there?
Mate, there's heaps in that, and we're not here to dissect it. But what was interesting, what came out of that, or the consequence of that, for want of better wording, is an incredibly long relationship between Sam Newman and Channel 9 ended on the back of that.
Well, and whether all parties have come out and said it's amicable, and of course someone pays the bill. So Sam might have looked at it and said, well, I no longer connect with Channel 9 because they're bloody, fairy floss, and they don't speak their own opinions, and they're trying to be everything to everyone. I don't know. I haven't had this conversation with Sam. And Channel 9 might have turned around and said, well, Sam, that's just deeply offensive and not in line with our values and where we're heading as a station, and our advertisers have stopped paying us money because, or for whatever reason. So that's a split. We
Correct.
get that.
So that's gone. So now Sam has been doing a podcast, and that was mentioned on his podcast.
That was his podcast,
quite a
by the
successful
way.
podcast. Yep. Yeah, correct. And they're travelling along pretty well from a ratings point of view. They're on 4.4, I think it was.
Really?
Which surprised me, to be honest, given how divisive some of the stuff he's said on. But I guess it shows to the audience that are listening.
What are people doing? They're wanting someone to have an opinion, not bloody sit on the fence.
And Sam certainly does that.
Very opinionated. Thanks, Sam.
Now that followed on again to this week.
Righto.
Let's have a listen to this one.
Former St Kilda football great Nicky Winmar will come face to face with Sam Newman and his 2 podcast co-hosts after the trio caused racial fury over Winmar's famous jumper lifting gesture back in 1993. The ex-footballer is suing Newman, ex-Hawthorn player Don Scott and journalist Mike Sheehan for defamation and racial vilification after they claimed Winmar pointing to his skin was not about black pride but beating Collingwood on guts.
What do you think, Don?
Well, I'll tell you what, coming face to face, I don't think either of those blokes, and having met Nicky and having met Sam, I don't think either of them would turn away from each other. And again, it's a point of opinion. But isn't it interesting to hear that people's opinion can wind you up in court, wind you up, buddy? Our society has changed where we can't say what we think anymore. We need a filter, and if we don't have a filter and somebody to help us with that, then sometimes our own opinions are our own worst enemy.
And Sam was very clear around that was their opinion, and it was a pretty light-hearted conversation, and I encourage people to actually listen to his podcast and put the context around it. But there is no question that Nicky took offence to that, and understandably so. It's something that he's very proud of, that he was the face of standing up to that racism in AFL in particular, and took offence to that being poured into question, that it was nothing about race, it was purely just because it was a gutsy win.
Yep.
So I can understand that offence. Now, it turns out, as of today, this morning, I said we're recording this on Saturday, there was a conciliation meeting that was held, and so they actually got in some mediators to come and mediate a conversation between the 3 guys and Nicky, and an agreement was reached. Now, of course, the agreement was confidential.
Of course.
However, what has been said is that it was agreed that a 6-figure fund, so we're talking 100K plus, was donated to a charitable cause, as now this matter has now been resolved.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, that's the reality of mediation. Sometimes what you ultimately hope for in any mediation is that people are better off for it. They've heard, they haven't just had a fight, but they've listened to something and go, shit, we can. I'll tell you what the real guts of this is. What's next week's episode with Sam?
It'll be interesting because you know how we said there was a fallout with Channel 9?
Yeah.
Well, there was also a fallout with this one. So the podcast was with 3 people. The podcast is now with 2 people. Mike Sheehan, on the back of everything that happened as a result of that particular podcast, has decided that he's not one for the controversy and he's out.
Right. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because he's got his own successful show, Fox Footy, all that sort of stuff, and has done some wonderful interviews over the years and always had an opinion. So even when you listen to that, it sort of makes you think to yourself, shit, people's have got real clear when you start rattling someone's values and what they believe in. Like I said in one of our earlier episodes, JT, there's only 2 things for me that are non-negotiable that I will not change my mind on, and that's abuse to children, abuse to women. Everything else, even my opinion on racism and bloody, dare I say it, my opinion on lollies and the naming of, I'm open to change. And I'm open. That change comes because the conversations, having people that are genuine, they believe that a conversation is worth having, and it doesn't really matter where it goes. I bloody love that, and I tell you what, I don't think we've heard the end of Sam's opinions. That's for sure, and that's the great thing. That's why his show is doing so well, is because he's not afraid to share his view.
And I think one of the great things of the world that we live in right now is if you take offence to what Sam's saying, don't listen.
Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Common sense says turn the telly off. If you don't want to watch bloody something that's not PG, then turn the telly off. Like turn the radio off. Don't. But unfortunately, there's people out there that their whole job, JT, is to scroll shit. And we've probably got a couple listening. Hello, suckers. Got a couple listening to us that are looking for something to create turmoil, to create. I reckon as society, we just got to call bullshit and go, well, you know what? If you take things out of context, then you're at liberty to just swallow crap.
Now, one of the things we mentioned in, I think, a podcast a couple back was Dylan Alcott.
Dylan Alcott, we did.
And we were a little bit critical, Don, of him having a crack about the
That was bloody lot critical. I thought it
was
bullshit.
Getting scrapped.
Yeah, I thought it was bullshit because he said it's discrimination against Dylan and the wheelchair athletes because he couldn't walk. That's why he wasn't playing at the US Open. And the reason I called bullshit on that is because it was a COVID decision made by administrators, and they also scrapped the mixed doubles and the juniors. Had they have not scrapped the mixed doubles and juniors, I would have said, Dylan, the right card, right time, well played. Unfortunately, I think he rolled that out and he got a lot of bloody pats on the back and sympathy, but people needed to scratch the surface a bit and realise that it was probably, standing on your pedestal and not good, it didn't get any votes from me. I didn't rate it.
Don.
Yes, JT.
Guess what's happening at the US Open?
Fuck, it's not.
It is.
It's back on.
It's back.
Did the mixed doubles in juniors, or did I not cry loud enough?
Everything's back.
It's all back on.
In a reduced format, I believe.
Oh, hang on. Someone's going to be pissed that it's reduced. What, reduced prize money or reduced...
No. I don't know. Let's not go into the details. But Dylan basically won, and his voice was heard. And they've just said, you know what? Okay, maybe we could actually run this thing.
Oh, well, it's US Open, isn't it? Oh, well, bloody pandemic's finished. Trumpy said stop tests. So, knock yourself out. Take all the nuffers that want to go and don't wear a mask. Knock yourself out. Breathe in that COVID. You dicks. Someone made a decision to help them out, and they refused to take it. So, mate, good luck.
Good luck.
Play well. Hope you win, Dylan. If someone's going to win it, I hope it's Aussie.
I'm sure he'll do very well. Now, Don, you're a motivational speaker.
What do you got? I'm a bit worried when you say, oh, Don.
You're a motivational speaker.
I am, mate.
You travel the world.
I do.
You talk to schools.
I love it.
Corporates.
Yep.
Businesses. Probably the same thing as corporates.
Allegedly.
Sporting clubs, fundraisers. Yeah, mate, you'll do anything, right?
I'm very fortunate. I've decided to make my presentations about life, which ultimately I forget everyone's got it. If I only made my presentations about sport, then those not interested in sport are going to go, yeah, another sports person. Tell your story walking. So when I present, I talk about real life stuff.
Which obviously is applicable to pretty much anyone, as you said. And you all mentioned earlier in this podcast that you feed off the audience.
Love it.
You know, I know. I've been there. I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
You do. You get, you get high in water, as you like to say. Or
Oxygen.
air, sorry, oxygen. Yeah.
I get excited with oxygen.
So it's just a slight problem at the moment, Don.
Yeah. Well, normally I'd speak to groups, JT.
That's right. And
It's
at the
bloody
moment,
illegal.
it's fair to say that there's no group activity going on.
Well, there is. I can go to a protest march or Chadstone. That's my only options. Or I can go to get a test. That's about the only place people are hanging out together.
So the challenge that we've got, Don, is
I'm out of work.
Mate, that's where you get your money from, right?
I
and
do.
Right now,
Donuts,
right?
Thank goodness for a bit of JobKeeper. That kept me alive for I don't know, a month. But then, I'm in the shit.
Yep.
Not like massively. The truth is, I decided that I actually feel better when I'm contributing. I've got a family. I've got 4 kids, and I love having a job. I've not honestly been unemployed throughout my life. I've always had something because my old man's approach to life was, mate, you're never above anything. So if you need to get in the shit pit to clean it out in our caravan park, that's what we're going to do. And so all of us kids, we grew up with the attitude of do what it takes to get through. And so on the back of not having a job, of not having motivational speaking as a source of income, I looked around and said, well, what else can I do? And I did a little bit of webinars and some Zoom stuff. And the truth is, I enjoyed doing it because I knew it was having a bit of an impact. But it didn't float my boat. I don't want to go and create an online program. I bloody love being in front of people. And as a result, I was fortunate enough to be able to see an opportunity to take some work on the tools. So I'm back on the tools, mate. I've been out the bush all week.
What are you doing?
I'm installing pump stations and building sheds and that type of stuff. So I'm literally on the tools. And it puts me with a group of blokes, and good group of blokes, really wrapped that I've got that group. I think no one leaves work. They leave dickheads. They leave people they don't want to be with. And I'm fortunately around some good people. So there's a lot of laughs out there, and because there's not a lot else. There's a few cows. It stinks a bit. But it's good because it's changing people's lives. They're getting, water through pumps versus channels. It's, seepage and evaporation. So
now I know you've been an elite athlete.
I have.
I've seen you in the peak. If I was looking up, male model,
and there was a bloody mirror for you. But
I've seen your body absolutely ripped.
I did get it to that stage
good.
at one point, JT.
Now, I like how you said at one point.
Those days are gone.
Because it was a while ago. the
Gone.
photo was actually in black and white.
Long
That's how long
gone.
ago
Yeah.
it was. I tried to find a video, but
It was before Photoshop too, so I couldn't even
nothing.
bullshit. It was the real deal.
So back on the tools, mate. You're literally out there, with the shovel and crap. How did your body hold?
I had 47.5 hours this week, and I'm rooted. Like, I kid you not, I'm knackered. And I first thing I did is I said to myself, I can't believe people actually do this for a living. Like, why would you do this? But the truth is, thank God they do. Thank God people. And to all the tradies out there, we gave a massive rap to the frontline workers a few weeks back. I'm dipping my hat to the tradies. I love you lot. You're bloody hard workers, and you deserve everything that comes your way because it's bloody tough physical labour. But again, it's people that we get around that makes a difference. So keep smiling, tradies. And I tell you what, this leads us into a ripping point, JT, is the conversations you have with people when you're out and about. We had some very interesting, and I'll tell you what, we talk about your dad jokes. I've got some material because I'm with a lot of dads out there, right?
Yep.
So I've got some dad jokes for you. In the next few weeks, I'll bring them to the table, okay? So stay tuned.
You are not crashing my little dad jokes party, mate.
I'm going to just bring a couple for you.
All right. Well, speaking of some incredible humour that we bring to the show.
What do we got?
Driving.
Oh, yeah, Media Watch.
Good little sting of that.
We just love that celebrities just keep on giving. They just keep on making little silly mistakes. And, of course, it's our job to pick up on those and bring them to you, our listeners.
What is it?
Well,
What's this week's?
I got a good one. Now, to be fair, we've really turned down the dial on the swearing. Well, I have anyway, Don.
Me too.
I mean, you've been better.
Well, I've turned it down. I didn't say turn it off.
I definitely haven't turned it off. But even for you, there's a spot that we don't go.
Yeah, well, we're never going to do the C-bomb.
Well, we aren't.
What do you got?
The Demons were all the rage, a lot of pressure on Mark Neal, obviously. But through the week, there has been a lot of interest in the Gold Suns, and the Gold Suns, and they are going to start favourites.
I can't believe this because the Melbourne Football Club have beaten Gold.
Oh, that was Danny Frawley getting Gerald Healy off the hook just by being a professional right there. He just rolled with that.
Was Danny? Just didn't flinch.
He didn't hear that, and I refuse to believe he didn't hear it. I think he just played it beautifully. Oh, Jared. That's one of those ones where when you look back, you go, mate, thank you. Because you've given the gift that keeps on giving. So, and that's what we're after. So if you've got one, if you know of one of these bloopers that have got past us, which would be rare because JT is the guru in all this crap, he's all over it, send it through. Let us know because we love it and we know you like it because you keep telling us. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Life hack of the week. Don, what have you got for our listeners this week?
Well, JT, I got a couple. I told you before I had the mask on, right? I was wearing the mask. I did the Sydney flight. When I got to Sydney, I realised why people aren't wearing masks. Because unless you've brushed your teeth right before you put your mask on, you smell like you've just kissed a pig's ass the whole way, and your breath comes back at you after a couple of coffees. And I don't smoke, but geez, that'd be even worse. So my life hack, very quick one, is these little bloody Listerine Go tabs. It's like a little don't do this, kiddies, but it's like just getting a mouthful of bio-soda carb and putting a bit of Listerine in and boom, it's a party in your mouth and fresh breath. So if you've got to wear a mask, I'd suggest grab yourself some Listerine tablets. They're good. But really what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a chat to people about coin, cold hard. And this is it. Money. We all want it, and it goes around, and bloody sometimes it seeps out quicker than it comes in. So my advice is I was very fortunate to read a book called The Barefoot Investor. And I loved it because I could align with it because I've been conscious about how to use money and why some people are nailing it in life and other people are struggling. So I tended to focus on who are the winners with money, and I figured I'll copy what they're doing. And they were investing in property and they were doing different things, and I thought, yeah, I want to do that. So what I decided to do is I decided to give myself a financial health check. And my tip is this: do this. If you're going to lose weight, you'll go to a nutritionist and they'll say, keep a record of what goes in your mouth over the next week, over the next 2 weeks. Here's my money tip. Keep a record of every cent you spend. Keep a record for a week, and then the following week, see what savings you can make. But don't stop there. Grab those savings and put them in a clear jar so that you can actually see those savings. The next week, do the same thing. If you can save yourself $10 a week, that's $520 a year. Just bang on savings. And it's easy enough to do it. My big advice is the Barefoot Investor changed my life. It literally had some brilliant advice, and that was to get the banker off your back. And you go, oh yeah, that's all cute to say that. But the truth is, and you go, oh, money's tight, I can't afford, $29 for the book. You know what? If we buy a coffee, let's say it's about $3 a day.
Jeez, where are you getting them? That's cheap.
Well, Coles on the go or somewhere. But, there you go, $5. So $5, I'm tipping this book. Any good books are around $29. All good books are around that.
Is that why yours is about half the price?
That's why, mine's at $20. I'm sneaking under the good books. Anyway, so you only literally have to knock yourself back 4 coffees. So don't do it all this week because you'll go spacco. But do it, one a day. And in 3 or 4 weeks, you'll have enough money saved up to buy the book, Barefoot Investor. Read it. Don't just read it. Follow it. Great advice. And honestly, the other thing I would tip, this is a bit, I loved it, and I did this with my family. I put a note with all the kids. We all guessed how much money would be in the jar at the end. So we put all our coins we got in this jar, and we guessed how much would be in it. We also guessed the location we would go on a family holiday with whatever we saved. And so we ended up saving about $3,000 over a course of about 2 years of just putting gold coins in a jar. I gave the silvers to my boy, and we all tipped how much would be in it. It's a game to play as well. When you get people to buy in, it's awesome. So it's a long bloody life hack this week, but it's worth it. Get yourself a financial health check and you'll be satisfied you did.
Awesome, mate. There you go, Barefoot Investor.
Now, mate, you've always got a life hack too. What do you got?
Oh, look, I just got a really small one because it's something that happens to me.
And what about the life hack?
Boom, boom. Not quick enough on the boom, boom button. I wasn't expecting comedy from you, Don. So
sorry, mate.
I've normally got my finger on the censor button, not the...
Are you ready?
Not the other one. Look, mine's a simple one. When you go to the bin in the kitchen.
Bin?
Yeah. How many times have you picked up the bin liner and you're going to take it to the bin, you pick it up and bloody shit starts dripping all over the floor as you're going down to...
None, because the shit's always in the toilet. No, I get it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So anyway, one of the good tips I was always told is just throw a bit of newspaper down when you put the bag in.
Yes.
And your bin, just throw a bit of newspaper at the bottom. It soaks up all the shit at the bottom, so that way when you do pick up the bag, nothing drips out the bottom.
There you go. Or paper towel for those of you that are under 30 and don't buy newspapers anymore. But
that would also work.
JT, I love it. Just a bit of paper in the bottom of the bag. Thanks, mate. Love it.
Pleasure.
What do you got?
Dad joke of the week.
Oh, here's your time, Sean. Here it is, mate.
This gets me up. I get bloody excited.
I
when
look
this
forward to
segment
this
comes
each
on.
week. I've got a few people that also do that.
Do you think that's actually happening?
No.
I don't think.
I talk about other stuff with them, but I mention your dad jokes just so that we can have conversation about it. But they are good, mate. People love them. What do you got?
Oh, well, look, I've got a couple for you today, Don. Now, the first one is, I don't know if you know this, but I used to be addicted to the hokey pokey.
Did you?
Yeah, but then I turned myself around.
Oh, that's a dad joke. That's what this segment is. That's good.
That's exactly what the segment is.
No, I like it.
All right, okay, next one. Here we go.
What else?
Now, a guy walks into a convenience store, 7-Eleven,
Right.
and he goes and grabs a single-serve meal.
Oh.
Yeah, and goes and gets a single-serve drink, small tub of paste, can't speak,
Toothpaste.
a single serve of dessert, basically grabs a single serve of everything. And he goes up to the counter, and the woman at the counter says, let me guess, you're single. And the guy sort of looks at her and goes, hey, how could you tell? She just looks at him and says, well, because you're fucking ugly.
Oh, JT, and a big hello to all the ugly people out there that are single.
How'd it go, Don? Out of 10, what do you reckon? Am I getting better?
Well,
are they getting better?
It's JT, I've always said, what I say doesn't matter. It's what the people say. And we thank you for your reviews, by the way. All reviews matter, and we love yours. So don't bloody not review JT's dad jokes, because they're a vital part of this show.
Heroes and zeros, the people that have contributed to society in a positive way, and those who have let the team down yet again.
Yeah, there's always someone that's willing to let the team down, isn't there?
There always is, and it's our job to try and call them out.
Call them out.
But we're going to focus first on our heroes this week, Don. And it's a bit of a deep topic, this one. And I'd like to give a shout out to Triple M.
Triple M, the radio station.
Yeah.
What have they done?
Well, mate, they've got a day that essentially it's a suicide awareness day. And it's a day on the radio where they decided not to talk. And so there's no talking on the show. They just play music and plug some ads around suicide awareness. And I don't know if you know this, but blokes make up an average of 6 out of 8 of every 8 suicides every single day in Australia. And the number of men who die by suicide in Australia every year is nearly double the national road toll. It is a massive issue for our country. And on a serious note, Don, I know that you can talk from experience. You wrote about this in your book, that you were close yourself one day.
Yeah, mate, I'll tell you what, it's interesting to, whenever you hear the word suicide, my first thought takes me back to, having some suicidal tendencies when I was young. And I really, the reason for it when I see it now is quite simply I didn't have the coping skills to be able to handle the amount of bullying that was heaped on me at the time. And so I just thought my option was I'm out. And I was fortunate that my dad come along at the time when I was thinking about which way I could do it, because in those days I was a lot younger than I am today, and I didn't even have any resources. I didn't have any ways, and I was sort of going through all this. And it's a really, really sad day when you're trying to work out which way you're going to kill yourself because you can't handle life anymore, and you think that's a good out. And I love the fact that my dad was there to say, mate, and help me realise that, there's bloody heaps of ways out. And the way I was looking at them they just weren't clear to me. And then, of course, over the time, building the resilience to be able to say, well, if ever I'm in that situation again, I know now that that won't be a mind process that I'll go through, because I've got the skills to be able to cope. And that's a lot of what I talk about as well when I am out and about. So the thing that's interesting is this day, this no talk day, which was Wednesday last week for us, we had Triple M playing Up the Bush through the internet, and on the back of this, I actually made sure that we did have a conversation. And better still, I asked a few of the boys that I was working with, I said, give me some reasons why people would suicide. Like what comes to mind? And then some of the things that they were saying was from bullying, which absolutely, from stress, from, financial hardship. That was a massive one, financial hardship. Like they've lost the farm, they're out of cash, they don't know what to do, we're screwed. I've got to check out. That was a really big one. And also family, the breakups of families. So, I'm divorcing you and you're not going to get to see your kids again. Those sort of things. The one thing we do know around having the conversation is that often it leads to people being better off for it. They just get something else to think about. And whether it's to reach out to Beyond Blue or Lifeline or any of those help organisations that are there. But my first thing that I want to do is, again, congratulate Triple M for doing this, and good pick up for them being our hero this week, JT, is to remind people to have a chat. And don't forget, although we say there's 8 people a day that attempt suicide or that take their life and 6 of them men, that's 2 women. And that all, we can't sweep that under the carpet, because women have troubles as well. And we are human. We all have troubles. So the key is being able to have a conversation and just get the ball rolling to ensure that we might not get the answers, but the one thing we will get is the answer that suicide is not the best option.
And something that happened locally here, Don, last week, it really hit home for me. Was I live pretty close to a big shopping centre here, which is Southland Shopping Centre for those in Melbourne. And I think I've spoken about Southland before on the podcast. I pumped it up a little bit.
You have. You talked about how shit Telstra were by not supporting being so close. Anyway,
don't even mention that bloody word, Telstra.
Let's go back.
And anyway, what happened last week was Southland's a 3-level shopping centre, so there's literally 3 levels, and there's like a centre court sort of area, and the elevators sort of go up to each level. They called elevators. No.
Yeah, escalators and elevators for if you've got a trolley. Yep.
So they just go right up to the 3rd level, and you can stand up the top and look all the way down to the bottom.
Right.
Yep. So a couple of days ago, someone decided to take their own life in the centre court at Southland. They jumped from the 3rd level at Southland, just out the front of David Jones, and landed down the bottom, and obviously deceased. And it was school holidays. Can you just imagine how many people saw that? And I was literally in that spot the day before with my kids, literally. And it could have easily just been us standing there and seeing that. And as an adult who's nearly 48, I would struggle to process seeing that. I honestly would have probably thrown up with not knowing how to deal with it, let alone how that would have influenced my kids, you would never forget that moment.
You can't unsee that, JT.
No, that's exactly right. It was just horrendously traumatic. Now, there was nothing reported in the news.
Yeah. And because suicides aren't reported, JT.
That's right. And so had I not known some things locally, I honestly wouldn't have even known about it. And now, honestly, I went to Southland yesterday, and I'm going to think about that every time I go to Southland now. It has such a huge influence. Now, the person that jumped was 65 years old.
Yeah.
Now, that surprised me in itself. I always just assumed it was more a young thing, like those things you spoke about. But the reality is it's of all ages.
Yeah, so I did a fair bit of work with, we were speaking at different places, and so I get to sit beside a lot of people. And I sat beside this bloke, and I asked him, I said, mate, who are the greatest candidates for suicide? And he said it's older men. And because they'll go through, and when they get to a point, so they've lived their life and then all of a sudden they're divorced or their business shuts down or they're retired, they're not sure how to live. Like they don't know, the future is not bright for them anymore. What I will say, and this is almost going to flip on what I've just said about the importance of reaching out and getting help. But you can help. And this is, JT, I want people to respect this. The people that suicide don't have to deal with anything anymore, right? That is the end. And it's sad that is the end, but it's their decision to do that. Can I say, if you are past the point of getting help and you are absolutely going to suicide, can I say you can help by which way you do it? And that is, like you just mentioned, the Southland. You know what? People can't unsee your final mistake. So can you please just be considerate? And if you can't do anything else in your life to save your own life, I get that. But God, you can have an impact by what mess you leave at the end. So please, worst case, JT, I'll put it out there. Like, I'm not going to put my mobile on here, but I'll put it out there. Reach out to us, mate. You know what? We've got enough connections to be able to link anyone up. We'll give you a phone number. It is as simple as reaching out to Beyond Blue. But that is a horrible, horrible, bloody selfish thing to do, have such a public display of your suicide.
Oh, mate, it's honestly, it's traumatic to think about it. And Don's right. If there's anyone out there that is listening and you're even remotely considering it, please just reach out, whether it's to me. Happy to have a chat to anyone. We've all been in dark situations, and we will talk about some of those as we go through these podcasts. Or reach out to Don, and we're here to help, right? Or reach out to your mates, reach out to your family. We don't want anyone to have to go through that. So if you are struggling, please just reach out.
And thank you, JT. We're going to leave our hero there because, of course, our hero was Triple M for playing the no talk day to get people to have conversation. We've got to get into our zero. Our zero is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
JT, tell us about our zero.
So I was just thinking, who the hell's our zero? So I'm looking at the run sheet.
Yeah, we're talking about taking your own life. Try taking someone else.
Jesus, yeah. So look, Timothy Owen, 50 years old, has been charged with attempted murder. And reason that really, these things happen. People get murdered. It's a shit world we live in sometimes.
We're not condoning it by the way.
We're certainly not. But when you're a nurse and you're found putting a pillow over the head of an elderly patient, I don't know how much lower you can go. And the reason he was charged with attempted murder is because, thank God, and they really should have been our hero of the week, but we didn't know their name because it was never released publicly, is another nurse walked by and actually saw what was happening and stop this bloke.
What an incredible situation to find. Like a ridiculously trusted person to be there to seriously wipe the bottoms of people that they're looking after, to care, to do so much more than that, by the way, to give them a quality of life, to this Timothy Flog to take it upon himself to end someone is horrendous. So thanks very much to the nurse. We're not going to give much more oxygen to the sucker that tried to do the wrong thing. Yep. But thanks very much to the person that intervened, because we talked just on our last podcast that went to life about intervening and how ordinary it was that nobody did to that girl at the train station. So well played to the person, the other nurse that saved. Did they save the life? What happened?
Yeah, correct. So
you ripper.
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff.
All right, now each week we get a guest celebrity on to just share some insight with us, and this week we managed to get Ricky Nixon to send us in some stuff. Now, for those of you that don't know Ricky Nixon, and I did a little bit of research because, I'm incredibly detailed when I do these things.
You do, JT. You're all over it.
Quick Google search. But with Ricky Nixon, he actually played AFL. I honestly never knew that. So he actually played 63 AFL games with Carlton, St Kilda and Hawthorn. And when he finished his footy career, he was a teacher at Kerry Grammar for 8 years. And then eventually he started his Flying Start sports management company. Now, they were managing some of the top talent in Australia. Literally, it was only top shelf stuff. They would not deal with any plebs, low life, wannabe athletes.
No,
it was literally, you had to be
cream of the crop.
Absolute cream of the crop. So, Donnie, how the hell did he manage you for a while?
There was one little moment in his life where he blinked and I sneaked into the stable. No, he did.
Unbelievable.
He did. He looked after some very big names in the sporting industry, and that's how we got onto Ricky, is because Ricky did manage me for some time, and that's where I met my later manager, Shani Wells, who I met with Flying Start. And then, of course, we progressed later on when Wellesley went out and did her own thing. So it was awesome to have Ricky actually still acknowledge me. I thought he would have forgotten me for sure. Most people have had therapy to forget me. So the fact that he took my call and we had a chat about the importance of our Celebrity Rewind segment, and he said, "Yeah, mate, I'll do it." You do know I've had an interesting time. I said, "Don't hold back, Ricky. Give it to us, because some of our viewers, our listeners, won't know that it's what sort of life you've had." So, mate, what do you got for us?
Well, I think that the thing to note before we play the clip is, look, it was a very successful sports management company. And as you said, he literally did manage all the top. If you weren't being managed by Ricky Nixon, quite seriously, back in the day, you were nobody, because he had the top shelf of everyone.
There was only a couple of agencies that really had, and he really did set the scene for, taking AFL players into the $1 million sphere.
Yeah, it's exactly right. But
it didn't do that with too many Paralympians, by the
way. But in 2011, it's fair to say that the world came crumbling down for Ricky Nixon, and not in a great way. The shit really did hit the fan. He went down a pretty bad addiction phase that involved, alcohol, cocaine, the works. He's been quite public about that.
He has been public about that.
But I think what most people remember is that that he had an inappropriate relationship with a 17-year-old girl. schoolgirl scandal, for those of you that remember it. And that led to him being suspended from the AFL for 2 years and effectively ended his business right there on the spot. A multi-million-dollar business was over, and he actually had to end up doing 200 hours of community service as well as an outcome of that. So it was very public, and the guy was married at the time. He's having an affair with a 17-year-old schoolgirl. You can imagine why it got a bit of media attention at the time, right? So let's have a listen to Ricky's recollection of a couple of things.
Have you ever made a mistake? I have. Mine was very public. Perhaps yours wasn't. The key to bouncing back, and it took me a while to realise, is you need to get out of denial. Denying that it's everyone else's fault but not yours. At the end of the day, you're only at the top of the pyramid. If you make a mistake, if you have an addiction, if you've done things you shouldn't have done, underneath people in that pyramid are your family, your kids, your sisters, your brothers. Maybe you're a footballer, netballer, etc. It's your teammates, etc. They're all underneath you and they're all suffering along with you. You get out of denial and you decide to do something about it. You can't rewind the clock. You can't fix things. You've got to do something about it. And I guess my fate was sealed when my wife said that to me. That, Ricky, you made a mistake, just like everyone else does. Do something about it. But it was my son Mitch, who was 15 at the time, who had actually been through hell and hadn't spoken for nearly 6 months. Going to school every day and every kid asking him what his dad had done. It must have been hell for him. He sent me an email. Imagine if you got this. My heart is broken. I've lost my footy coach. I've lost my dad. I was devastated. When I finally made the decision to do something about the problem that I had with an addiction, and I spoke to my son that night, he had his head down on the kitchen table, and I said, Mitch, please, is there anything I could do for you? And he didn't answer. I said, please, Mitch. My wife, Jude, said, don't worry, we're going to support you. Get off to rehab. It was then that Mitch looked up, and I said, Mitch, please, mate, is there anything I can do for you? And this will haunt me till the day I die. He said, yep, I just want my dad back. I just want my dad back. And I hope that makes some difference to your life.
Pretty human element to that story, isn't it?
Oh, mate, when you even hear when he speaks and he says, I just want my dad back, the breaking in his voice, how difficult, and we've both got sons, JT, to just picture yourself there hearing your boy say that, because the one thing every father prides themselves, and mother I'm sure, is that you want your kids to grow up and love you and connect and ultimately be your best mate and to respect you and love you, and to think that you've lost that. That's got to be tough, mate. That's got to be tough.
Pretty tough. And I really want to thank Ricky for contributing to that, because, and look, I don't know Ricky. I've never met him. Obviously, you haven't had a relationship with him. But to me, if there was a guy that was a candidate for ending it all, just Ricky Nixon, it could have been more public. Yeah. You know how humiliating that would have been on so many different levels. Yeah. And you know what? He's done the wrong thing, but he stood up and he said, I've done the wrong thing. He's done his rehab. He's done the crime, doing the time, all the cliches are there, and he's out there talking about it. Yet I think people have obviously got an opinion and would be very divisive over it. But you've sort of got to go, well, mate, hats off for at least getting out there and owning it. Well, having a crack.
Yeah, at what point do people move on? You don't move on until someone's paid their penance, do you? So that you want them to be punished for their actions, but after that, this is a punishment that's going to hold on for a long time. So, but he sent us one question too. He wanted us to, I put it to all our listeners, our celebrities. I said, leave us with the question. Tell us what you got. This is what Ricky said.
I guess, JT and Don, I ask you this question. Who are actually true friends? When I was down and out, Sam Newman came to me and he said, you're about to find out who your true friends are. Your true friends stick by you through thick and thin. They mightn't agree with the mistake you make, but they stick by you. What's your thoughts on who a true friend is?
Bloody good question. Well, JT, I only have to look across your bedroom here to see a true friend. For me, I tell you what, to look around, I reckon as we go through life, Facebook are responsible, I think, for distorting what friendship, in my opinion, really is. And when someone really likes something, it's so easy to be a friend. But I've got friends, and respectfully, that I've not seen in 40 years, and some of those people I pick up and exactly where we left off, and it's awesome. And you know, my schoolmates like Cal that I haven't seen, and whenever we catch up, it's like bang, and that's a true friend. For me, it's somebody that you know is with you, and your true friends. This is the catch: the true friends know when you make a mistake, and they don't ditch you out for that mistake. They see your warts and all. And I had a good mate, and it's one that I'm sure we'll explore in future episodes. And he made a massive decision, and it's literally changed the fate of his life. He killed his girlfriend. His name's Oscar Pistorius, and the outcome there is the world turned on him. And I figure, well, you know, there's an issue for me. Oscar is welcome in my house tomorrow. So, you know, in terms of true friends, I think that your true friends are people that go through with you through thick and thin. They don't just ditch you at the first sign of a break of who you are.
I don't know how I feel about that.
About true friends?
No, I agree with you on true friends. I don't know how I feel about Oscar if he'd be welcome in my house. I tell you what, I felt sick when I saw that whole segment. Now, I never met the guy. You obviously had a relationship with him and you knew him really well. So I'm looking forward to discussing that in some other episodes.
Good. That'll be another day.
Now, one of the other segments we've got is our customer service stuff.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Now, Don, this week I'm going to do something a little bit different.
Oh, you get scared when I say I'm going to do shit different. So, but I'm not scared because you're all over this, JT. This is your segment. Who's pissed you off in the customer service world?
I'm going to keep this incredibly real and raw because this is something that's happened to me this week.
No.
Now, Don, when I moved into my place, 18 months or so ago, I'm one of those sleepers, and we all like different things. I like dark.
Yeah, me too.
Right, you know, pitch black, that'd be great. I want to wake up in the morning at 11 o'clock in the morning, oh shit, it's 11 o'clock, not knowing by the sun.
Right.
Love it. I work late nights sometimes, you know, I like a sleep in every now and then.
Yep.
Not that it happens often, but
yeah,
when it does,
I'm an early riser, by the way, but that said, when I go to sleep, I want to put my hand in front of my face, and I don't want lights around the room and other phones and stuff. Dark is good.
Exactly. So I got some blockout blinds when I first moved in. It was one of the first things I did. And look, they were great, but there was a bit of light leakage at the top of the blinds, you know, where it sort of gets towards the ceiling and the light was still coming through.
And reflecting on the mirror you've got above your bed.
Let's not talk about that mirror. And you know, it was just one of those things that was really frustrating me. And eventually I thought, you know what, Don, I've got to do something about this because it was just niggling at me and I'd left it for months and months. It wasn't at the end of the world, but, you know.
What'd you do?
COVID had a few things to do on my time. I thought, bugger it, I'm going to get onto this. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to ring a local company and get them come around and say, look, here's my problem. Give me a solution.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So I had this company come around. They had a look and they said, you know, you need a pelmet. Now, a pelmet is that little sort of, I don't know how you describe it.
A little box around the outside.
There we go. Great description. So they said, well, you need a pelmet. I said, well, you guys need to get me a pelmet then. Yep. We picked some nice colours for the front. I thought, happy days.
Good idea.
About 4 or 5 weeks later, why these things take that long is always beyond me, but that seems to be the norm in that industry.
Put a pelmet in my shed today.
That's what I would have thought, right?
Okay.
So
they're busy.
Maybe they're busy.
Yep.
And so the day comes and the guy comes around, he installs it. Now I'm downstairs working here in this office right now. And anyway, eventually he goes, mate, I'm all done. And I thought, fantastic. I said, good luck, see you later. Walks out. And first thing I do, of course, when I get a chance, straight out the bedroom, let's test this baby out, shut the blinds and lie in my bed. And I'm looking up and going, oh, you've got to be shitting me. There's still a bit of light coming through. No. Now, these pelmets were $700, you know, and I'm happy to pay, you know, if it's going to do the job, right?
Yeah, well, you've got a history of pain.
So, you know, quality is remembered long after price is forgotten.
Right.
One of my favourite quotes. Quality is remembered long after price is forgotten.
Do it right. Yeah.
And anyway, so look, fair to say I was still a bit peeved. I paid $700 to get some pitch black and I'm not getting pitch black.
Yeah, especially when you've got a gold-plated toilet.
Now, the company, the way the payment works is you pay half on deposit, basically. And then I think I had $200-300 to pay on completion.
Right. Makes sense.
So the company come around and they actually go, hey, guess what? We're just following up after the installation. Want to see, make sure everything was okay. And I thought, gee, that's bloody great service. They've actually followed up. And I thought, beauty, because I was going to get around and calling him. And I thought, well, you know what? No, it's not okay.
So this is your customer experience, a positive review, JT.
Well, not quite. The positive part was they actually followed up and asked if I was happy, and that genuinely is good service. That's good. I'm sure for the majority of people, they would say, you know, yeah, I'm actually wrapped, and thanks for following up. Right. Happy days.
Credit where credit's due.
But obviously, as I said, I had a bit of light leakage. I still wasn't happy. I just hadn't gone around and calling him and telling him about it.
Light leakage is something different when you're older too, by the way, JT. Heads up.
That's also true. Put that visual in my head. So I said, look, I'm not really wrapped. There's still a bit of light leakage. The whole idea was to block out the light.
Right.
And she's like, oh, well, that's no good at all. Look, what we'll do is we'll send one of our guys around here, he'll have a look, and we'll see if we can fix it up for you. I thought,
awesome.
What a great bloody service that is.
Here we go. We'll give him a wrap.
So a couple of days later, the tech gives me a call. I said, mate, I'll come around in about half an hour. I said, Giddy Up. And so he comes around, and same problem.
Always pushing the podcast. I love that.
I'm busy, and he goes up and has a look, and he comes back down. He says, oh, mate, I don't think there's much I can do.
Oh.
He goes, it's pretty dark. I don't really see what the issue is.
He's got a different standard of dark.
I said, well, hang on a minute, hang on. So I said, let's go up to my bedroom, right? And so...
It's not the first time you said that to a bloke, is it?
Come on. And so we go up to the bedroom and shut the blinds. I don't like where this is going myself, and I'm telling the story. And of course, it does look pretty dark. And I said, but you've got to see it from my view. You've got to be on the bed.
The lines we're using,
I know,
JT.
right? So the guy's just sort of giving me that look. And I'm like, trust you, mate. It's all good. It's I don't bat for the other team. But each to their own. But,
no, that's okay if you do.
That's exactly right.
But I reckon he would have expected dinner first.
I just want to show you this light. Like, hey, by the way, do you want to drink while you're here? But, so anyway, he sits down on the bed, and clearly you can see the light leakage pretty clearly when you're a bit lower down as opposed to standing up. And he goes, oh yeah, mate, I can see what you mean now. And so anyway, we open the blinds, and he's having a look, and he goes, oh, I think I've got an idea of maybe what we could do to fix this. And I thought, oh, beauty. And he says, look, we'll just put another little strip here and blah, blah, blah. He's explaining it. He said, look, I'll go back to the factory. I'll talk to the guys there. We'll be in touch. And I thought, all right, awesome. That's bloody good service. They've come around. They've got a little solution, and they're just going to get all this sorted. And I didn't give it another thought.
Right.
Now, a couple of days later, Don.
Okay, when you're waiting for him to turn up and...
With a solution. Yeah, so I thought someone's going to call me and say, hey, we've worked out what it is. And look, there might have been an additional cost. We could have had a debate over whether I should have paid any more or not. Yeah. But all I got was a voicemail, Don, left on my mobile.
Oh, when are they coming? What did they say?
Well,
have you got it?
Well, I was tossing up whether to play this or not. And of course,
another episode is going to be scrapped.
In true style, I thought, stuff it. I'm just going to play it.
Well, it's the customer service blowtorch, mate.
That's exactly right.
Who you got? What have they got?
Have a listen, man.
Have you got it?
I think I've got it. Give me a sec.
This bloody IT, this is your space.
I know. I feel like I don't have it at the moment. Hang on. I don't have it.
Oh, no.
Mate, just stall.
All right. Okay. All right. You go fishing for that. And this is probably God sending us a message saying, JT, if you play this, we're going to get our ass in the courts again. But it's probably not, actually. I'm sure. Do they name the company? That's probably an interesting thing. And of course we're allowed to name companies. I mean, it's real, isn't it?
It happened. It is real.
Yeah, well, that's what we should discuss.
And I think one of the things that we should also say is that we do this in one take, which is why it was so difficult when we decided to scrap that last episode, because we thought there were a few good bits in it.
There was some gold in that, something better than this show, by the way.
But obviously, we it's like it's all or nothing, basically.
Yes,
so right now, even though we've completely balls up, listened to this
up. Right.
Actually,
have you got that on silent? Is that why it's not working?
No. Okay. It's just for those that are watching on home, this all syncs up to my desk.
Mate,
it's all Bluetooth.
This is like DJ bloody... Who's that big DJ? Clad or someone? I don't know. I don't listen to DJ. But he's got all the mixer and the turner and the head. This is the real deal. If you could see this now, you'd be just going, JT, that's impressive.
And it is impressive, but I just don't know if we're going to be able to get this up. So I am just... Oh, here we go. We got it.
Right, here we go.
I think we got it.
Right, this is the...
Well, you almost sent Sam back.
Oh, hang on. Let me just start that again. Here we go.
Hi, Justin. I noticed we did an installation for you and was sent Sam back just to have a look if we could amend that installation in any way just to get you a little bit more light block. But Sam has reported back that's the absolute best that we can do with your light block, that obviously you're getting that bleeding from the top, which, a little bit of that bleeding is to be expected of that light. And perhaps sitting on a bed looking up, of course, makes that a little bit more accentuated. But that is the best that we can do. If you've got any more concerns or you've got any suggestions of what you'd like us to do, feel free to give me a call. But otherwise, accounts will forward your invoice again for your final balance of $288. Thanks, Justin.
Donnie. So basically, snapshot of that is Sam's decided now there's nothing that they can do, and, it's a bit of light leakage is to be expected, and where's the money?
So the text walked away from here saying, I'll come back to you with a solution. They've come back, left a voicemail message and said, pay the invoice, that's it, suffering your jocks.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, that went from hero to zero real quick, because 1 minute they're bloody doing all the right things, and then just seems a bit lazy, doesn't it? It just seems a bit like, mate, we've...
Tony, not happy.
Well, it's your blowtorch. If I was you, I'd light it on them. That's crap.
What do you reckon I should do?
Well, I think you've just done a pretty good thing there for their business. My view is I'd be asking, yes, they've left a voicemail message, but I'd be following that up and saying, hey, listen, I'm not quite ready to pay that invoice yet. How about we have a chat about the terms from the start of our arrangement, which were you'd be able to block this out. We're not there yet.
Love to hear from our listeners on what you think I should do to respond to that particular curtain company.
Wow. That's poor.
Now, our final segment is always our audience Q&A. Now, what have we got, Don?
Cool. I was listening to that stinger and I'm thinking, shit, what is this one for? JT, we've been inundated. What I want to do is I want to say a massive thank you to all the people that have written reviews. And even though we applauded with great fanfare the people that listened to the show and didn't leave a review because they thought we were shit, some get past that, and that's okay, because what all your reviews do is it fuels our tank, and we love that, but it also makes us reflect on what's working and what's not. Unfortunately, dad jokes are staying, but our black lives and diving into a space where we need to be educated more, we got that feedback. And so we're grateful for that. We're still going to have a conversation, make no mistakes about that. But where we go with that. So I want to just say a big, massive thanks to the reviews. And
keep them coming.
On the back of that, we did have a lot of feedback around JT's adoption. And I mentioned that he is not going to shy away from the story of being adopted. And you grew up with a mum and dad who loved you, and you were always well and truly clear that you were adopted. And there was a time in your life that you wanted to find out more about it. So far, you've told us that you went along to an adoption organisation. They give you some information. You go along, you picked up that information. You found out that your real name, your birth name, was Maddie Meads, and you were then about to tell us, JT, around what it was like to meet your biological mum. Can you pick up there, mate?
Yeah, well, geez, that was a big day. So I did write a letter to my mum, and they teach you how to write a letter, and it's the whole idea of the letter is if someone else opens it, that they could sort of talk their way out of it. So if they'd remarried, had a partner, whatever it might have been,
right,
it was sort of innocuous enough. So it was along the lines of we met, 25 years ago, we were pretty close, and then we went our separate ways, and blah, blah.
So they only need to read, and any biological parent would be able to read between the lines.
That's exactly right.
But any, someone on the edge who's not in that situation would just go,
who was that or whatever. Yeah, it's exactly right.
Right, good.
So I sent the letter off to my mum. It was back in the days where we had phone books. So literally, because I knew her surname, and it turned out she'd never remarried, so she was in the phone book. I knew her address, and it turns out she literally lived, 20 minutes from where I lived.
Did you? Fair dinkum. So did you just think, stuff the letter, I'm just driving by?
No. I'm a stickler for rules and process.
I know.
So I followed the process, and I did send the letter.
Right.
And good old Australia Post managed to deliver the letter.
Well played, Australia Post. Love your work.
Good God. There's my blooper for the week.
Oh, geez.
Good job.
Hold on to that.
And anyway, sure enough, the phone rings the next day, Don.
Well, that is good. Did you express post it?
No, just normal delivery. Back in the days when posts were on it.
They were good.
Yeah, good days. Good old
I
days.
was with Australia Post back then.
And it was probably, mate,
I probably delivered it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might have been behind it. And anyway, the phone rings, and I answer the phone, and I said, hello. And this lady just goes, hi, it's your mum.
No.
Legit.
So she obviously heard you say, hi, it's Justin. But... well, you would have signed your letter, Justin, because as far as she's aware, you're Matthew.
Yeah. Well, that's right. So she's like, hi, it's your mum. So I was like, holy shit. It was, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
It was just such a, wow, this is a big moment. And so we sort of had a bit of a conversation. She goes, I'm so glad I got your letter. And,
because, wait, before that, the mob that taught you how to write this letter would have given you a couple of scenarios and saying, hey, you might not hear back or you
100%. And that happens a lot of the time.
So this would have literally, you would have been gobsmacked.
Yeah, correct. It was
at
like
the speed of light.
Next day, bang.
Far
You know,
out,
I've sent a letter one day and the next day I'm talking to my mother.
Yep.
It was like, whew, things are happening pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And one of the things they teach you is a little bit about like online dating today in 2020.
I don't know anything about it.
No, you wouldn't. I'm dipping my toe in a little bit. But one of the things that you're always sort of encouraged to do is, if you're meeting for the first time, is to meet in a public place, meet at a restaurant or whatever. Just
good
invite
safety.
someone over to your place or meet in where bad things can happen because unfortunately there's shitheads in the world.
Yep.
And so the similar advice is when you're meeting, your biological parents is to meet in a public place.
Right.
And, that way if things go, horribly wrong for whatever reason, it's easy to walk away or bad things can't happen.
Okay.
And so, of course, threw all that out the door and Helen invited me to come over for lunch. I think it was the next day and I was like, well, what the hell? Why not, And,
I'm hungry.
Yeah. So I did. So I went to my to my mum's, Helen's place the next day to meet her.
And so you knock on the door, you organise this catch up, you open the door. Before that, you were telling us in previous episodes, you're looking at your muscle and you think it's bloody Arnold Schwarzenegger, could have been your dad. You're looking at people in the street going, is that my mum?
Yep.
You open the door. Are you thinking?
It was a big moment. I remember just knocking on that door. It's just, your heart's going 100 miles an hour, right? And it's a moment you've dreamt of for
your life,
forever and a day, right? So it's going to be a big moment. But you're also sort of going, shit, I don't know what's going to be behind the door either, and how is this going to go? And so there's just so there's a million things going through your head. Yeah. And so she opens the door, and I look at my mum for the first time. The first time you're laying your eyes on your biological mother, right? It's a weird.
Most
thing.
of us will never remember that because it happens at birth. At birth.
Yeah, that's right. So this is your first moment, and I remember looking at Helen, just thinking, she doesn't look like what I expected her to look like.
You thought she was a maid or something?
Well, no. It was just, I didn't see a huge amount of similarities. She was quite short. I mean, I'm 6'3".
Yep.
Helen was a lot shorter. She was, a little bit overweight. She's not obese, but she was overweight.
Yep.
And I just thought, oh, wow, that's just not what I expected. I just sort of expected someone tall and sporty.
Yeah, you expected to have some sort of apple and tree moment.
Yeah, exactly right. And her very first words to me, Don.
Yep.
Oh my God, you look exactly like your father.
Holy shit.
And I sort of just hit me in the head. I was thinking, oh, okay, because I didn't feel like I looked a hell of a lot like her.
That's going to make you feel a bit better because you're going, well, okay, it's not you I got my looks from.
Yeah. And
wow.
So, look, anyway, look, obviously, she invited me in and look, it was fantastic. She told me everything, it was just so amazing to hear her life story and everything that she'd been through and why she gave me up, all these questions that I had, that I'd always wanted to ask.
Right.
Nothing was off limits, and she just sort of said, look, ask me anything you like. And she showed me photos of, of her family or my family.
Yep.
So I got to learn more about aunties and uncles that I didn't know existed that were out there. And,
right.
So it was a pretty surreal moment. It was awesome.
And the natural first question for me is, where's Dad?
Yeah. Well, and of course,
you would have asked that,
especially when she said, you look exactly like your father.
Yeah.
Well, and to give a little bit of context to that, on the birth certificate, there was no information about my father.
Oh, okay. So you fully knew you were only going to meet your mum. You weren't expecting to meet Dad. There's
Correct.
Ah, okay, right. And so we will talk about Dad out of because I'm looking at the clock. Our podcast has gone for a long time. I don't want to wrap it up too soon.
Yep.
But Dad's another story, right?
Yeah, we'll definitely cover that off in another episode.
Okay.
So for me, it was, absolutely ask that question, and that has its own story and journey on its own.
And so straight away, were you looking around how old were you, JT? 25?
Oh yeah, I was early 20, I think.
Okay, so you're thinking is my brothers and sisters here? Like, what? Tell me.
Yeah, so my mum had never remarried,
right,
and had no other children.
Right.
So from that perspective, it was still just me.
Okay.
Yeah. And it said that it turns out there are a few other siblings out there that we'll cover in another episode.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, this is bloody intriguing. We might scrap the rest of this bloody podcast stuff and just talk about your adoption. This is amazing. And I'll tell you what, the story is one that keeps on giving. And the reason I keep asking these questions of JT is because our listeners want to know more about it. So again, mate, thank you for being so open, so caring and giving around your personal journey. And of course, what could only be an amazing childhood. So until next week, giddy up.
All right, well, as per usual for our people watching the video, I love this bit, right? Because we've turned off from the people just downloading the podcast, and we want to give you something a little bit extra. Now, we covered off, Don had some amazing sex tips for the bedroom. Thank God I cut him off when we did.
JT, I'll tell you what I did is I brought in this stuff this week because I was going to do a big segment where you had to put your mask on and face coverings and stuff, and this is potentially what I would have looked like. But
oh dear.
It's anyway, clearly to see if you're going to do the face mask, it's probably, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know.
There's probably a few holes in how that's going to work for you.
I might let the viewers next week let us know if I should wear the face mask for the entire show.
Absolute idiot.
Have a good week.
Vlog. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.